Resilient New Jersey, Atlantic Coastal Region is seeking your input to better prepare for current and future natural disasters. We discuss this and more on preparedness and resiliency. It's all here on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Choose to get lost in the woods to gain experience in forest management.
Choose to travel through time to understand the past.
Choose to soar to pursue a career in dance.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, offering primary, specialty, and urgent care, plus surgery and more. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.
Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. I'm happy to have as my guest Nieves Pimienta. She is with the Outreach and Engagement Team, otherwise known as POET. She's the manager there. Welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you. Buenos dias. And I'm so happy to know that Latino Motion is in motion. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we want to talk about resiliency today. We just had a snowstorm. We've here in particularly in the coastal region, we've had events such as Sandy. So it's important that we talk about this important topic in terms of preparedness and also the impact within minority communities, such as the Latino community. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit about your role in terms of POET and the organization that you're working with.
Sure. As you said, my name is Nieves Pimienta, and I work for POET, which stands for Public Outreach and Engagement Team. That's part of the Voorhees Transportation Center. It's a research center within the Blausen School of Urban Planning in Rutgers University, the State University of New Jersey. So my role is to do the outreach for the vulnerable population. And when we say vulnerable population, our specific cohorts, these cohorts have been identified, at least 4 of them. It could really be more of these groups, but for the most part, I have to reach out to the Hispanic community, to the limited income community or low income, to the seniors, older adults, and people with disabilities. Sometimes we do include other groups such as caregivers, which have a very specific lifestyle and challenges throughout the day, etc. And what we do is within specific projects, we go out and talk to them and identify their challenges, identify their needs, their expectations from their communities. So we understand that the vulnerable populations, which could be a big part of our communities, do struggle with specific issues. It could be transportation, it could be structure, it could be investments, it could be the digital divide.
And certainly, Nieves, I know that particularly in our area here in South Jersey, where we do have a large a Latino population, all of us have experienced some storm-related issues, climate issues that have taken place at our home country, like in Puerto Rico, where we had Maria, in Mexico, where we had the earthquakes and other disasters that happened out throughout Latin America. And it happens here too. So it's important that we be prepared for those type of events taking place. But often, that's the community that's sort of left behind in some ways, or are not as prepared to manage and work through those issues during a storm. What's the purpose of your research in terms of better preparing those vulnerable communities like the Latino community to be able to better manage those future storms?
So right now we are working with Resilient New Jersey in a specific project, and we have identified the need for them to be prepared for the simple reason that when you are prepared, you mitigate all the effects that any negative event might have. For example, northeastern hurricanes that we have seen that has impacted the communities that are already in distress, then it will put our residents, our stakeholders in a more sensitive situation. And now we're dealing with the effects of the pandemic. So it really adds more stress to the stress. So preparedness is really a big part of the battle. If you are prepared and you already know, or we know as collectively, let's assume you're new to the area, but collectively we know some of the issues and challenges that you're going to have, then let's have things in place that can mitigate that effect. So that's the way, that's the importance of it. You don't want to be affected negatively. So once you have those things in place, then most likely you're going to suffer less, and your family and your community, you're going to suffer way much less the negative impact that these scenarios have. And we know them. These are not new to us. We have gone through hurricanes, we have gone through nor'easterns, through storms, snowstorms, and now the pandemic, which has brought new challenges to us. So now we know we're more experienced, we're more knowledgeable, we're wiser. And technology also help us. So there's more technology in engineers, within the engineers, with the planning, with the planners, specifically with urban planning, with the communications. Is there a digital divide? So those are the things that come with a scenario and an event that really impact us negatively.
So, Nieves, I know that, when we talk about resiliency, you're really talking about sort of long-term, right? What can you do now to prepare? Often we're kind of reactive. I know that when we had the last storm here, this nor'easter with the snowstorm, everyone's running to the store to get the salt, to get the shovels, to get prepared. You go to the store, all the shelves are clear. So there's not a lot of planning ahead in many of those cases, and it's really short term in terms of planning for the coming event. When you're talking about resiliency, you're really talking sort of the long haul, if you will. How do you become more prepared? So what's the message that you tell the community in terms of that, in terms of what resiliency really means for a community?
Well, resilience means the capacity to recover. So do you have a slow capacity to recover? Do you have an immediate capacity to recover? How quickly can you recover? And the way it's measured is how well prepared you are. The better prepared you are, the sooner you're going to recover. I have to say, me being a Latina, I know that we don't know what a northeastern is. We don't know what a snowstorm is. So we often our countries, yes, they might have a hurricane, we have hurricane season, etc. But we tend to procrastinate a little bit. We live in areas that pretty much, we can vaticinate and just forecast the climate. Maybe if it changes, it's not that drastic on us. So when we have these events that are so drastic in the structure in our lives, we're not prepared. And we think that we are.
This is what we want to continue to discuss in terms of some of the things and some input that you're trying to find or seek from the community. We want to discuss that next. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Nieves Pimienta. She is the manager of public outreach and engagement team at VTC Research Center. And we were talking about, preparing for a disaster, particularly on the coastal areas like Atlantic City and other communities along the shore. And particularly when we're talking about the vulnerable communities, such as the Latino community. One of the things, Nieves, that I notice is that the action plan for like a Sandy means you have to, perhaps leave your home. And there's resistance within the community to do that. Maybe they're just not prepared to be able to pick up and go. What suggestions you have in that regard?
What we have found through research and focus groups and conversations with the community, and specifically with the Atlantic County coastal region, which is what we're doing the research for Resilience New Jersey, is that there's a lack of information. The information is not uniform. The information not completely comes in Spanish. It's not available in Spanish. It's often part of it is in English, part of it is in Spanish. And not everyone follows the same source of information. So for example, we tend to, first, I'll be prepared. Second, we have to identify our source of information. Is it going to be the police? Is it going to be the mayor? Is it going to be the governor? And who are we going to listen? Are we going to listen to our neighbor and then do what our community or neighbor is saying? So there's an education component in terms of what is it that we have to do and where to get the information.
And Nieves, you also have an opportunity to give input, right? So I know that you're engaging in open houses, providing information. Tell me a little bit about how folks could get engaged, particularly we're talking primarily the minority community, who's often is a voice that may be left out, and we like to get more input from that community. How can they get engaged?
Wonderful. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Right now, we're working on Resilient New Jersey for the Atlantic County Coastal Region, which is a project that is managed by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP. And there's a website that I hope you can have on the screen, which is Resilient NJACCR, which stands for Atlantic County Coastal Region. Right there, you can actually put your name and your email and phone number, and then information is going to come to you when we're going to have community conversations. And the community conversations are basically kind of a meeting, a virtual meeting, where we're going to ask you, what is it that you need? What is it that you think we should have ready? What preparedness would you need us to help you with? To be safe, to be resilient once this comes. And also, what is it that we have to have ready after the storm? So there are two ways. You can send an email, and the email also is on the website, or you can basically fill out a form and you're going to be invited, or you can basically through the email, you can provide to us Where do you think your challenges are? And why are those challenges? What is it that you are not having that you understand your community should have, such as an evacuation plan, maybe vehicles that can come and pick you up. Do you think we should have places that can offer specific diets or specific places with shelter with specific equipment to basically be able to keep medicines, things like that. Where to keep your pets, for example. We have heard that quite a lot. And things like that. So you go through the experience, you are there, you're the ones that have to identify those scenarios that you understand are going to be more impactful on you and the things that we need to have for you.
And those are all issues that came up during Sandy, right? About where do I leave my pet? And one of the things we also found, engagement through the Hispanic Association was the lack of bilingual individuals to help support, particularly in the shelters, when you're trying to get people in and talk about their issues. It was difficult, and being able to have a welcoming environment as far as allowing translators to come in, that was also an issue that I know that we faced during that time. So there certainly is a lot of input that from the experiences that we've already had in the Latino community here with Sandy and other events that certainly would be valuable to your team. Information that you may already have, but certainly it's good to hear from other people of those needs.
Absolutely, and that's so true. One of the things that were mentioned several times is to train people to be able to help people in their own language, in their native language. And another thing that came up several times is the lack of preparedness that people have, and maybe this is also an educational component, in having their documents ready and packed. For example, if you have your residency card, if you have a copy of your bank statements, if you have your passport, you have to carry those with you because you don't know how the property is going to be when you come back. So that was something for the Hispanic community, for the immigrants, that was huge. Because a lot of them left home and then they left their belongings, of course, but they also left their, some of them left their IDs and their important, documentations regarding their status. So there was, so one of the suggestions is to actually have a program to scan and just archive everything digitally so that the person, if have to leave soon and doesn't have everything prepared, you can find that in a digital bank, if you will, and have access, because that really becomes a headache after the event, and then you don't have your papers.
Yeah, I know that medication, as well as the documentation, was a big part of what we went through with Sandy locally here in the region. Folks just did not think ahead when you evacuate that you need that for the long haul, right? Your medication and certainly the documentation you may need.
Correct. We have to think that when you're prepared, you have to think ahead. You have to really kind of outdo yourself. Like if you know you might forget something, instead of waiting for that moment, within the next month, let's say before the hurricane season, we can start writing a list of things that you would need.
Well, actually, that's something that we want to get into at the next segment. We're going to take a quick break and pause right now. Great information. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Nieves Pimienta. She is the manager of public outreach and engagement team for the VTC Research Center, where we're talking about resiliency for disasters. And one of the important things is certainly getting the input of the community. I know that you're planning to do some discussions in Spanish to get more of that input within the Latino community. Tell me more about that.
Yes, as part of Resilient New Jersey, Atlantic County Coastal Region, we're going to have a series of community conversations, and we call it community conversations because that's exactly what it is. One of them is going to be in Spanish. So those of you and those of, if you know of someone that would like to join the conversation, and basically this is for you. We want to hear from you. What are your challenges? What are your ideas when it comes to resilience, when it comes to all the challenges that you go through, when, there's the effect of climate change and other events such as, all the changes with the pandemic. So if you go to the website of Resilient New Jersey, ACCR, you can actually change it into Spanish, and all the information is going to be changed. The platform will change it into Spanish. There is an email, and if you would like to participate, just fill out all your information, and then we'll be in contact with you. We don't have the dates yet, but through Bert, maybe we can post something once we have the date, so you can either participate in English or you can participate one completely in Espanol. So you can, feel comfortable, and it's going to be conducted by me. So, by the way, we don't take names and address, etc. We do want to know, obviously, your name, because I have to call you by your name. If there's an email, that's wonderful. We need an email because it's going to be via Zoom. And then your town, where do you reside? Because that will give us perspective on the comments that you're making. For example, if you need shelter, nearby shelter, if you want to have available transportation, if you want a plan of evacuation, we need to know where most likely you're going to be. We don't need an address, we just need an area. Sure. But this is for our own purposes.
Right, and that, you make a good point, because there's a lot of concerns about privacy, right? And folks are a little leery about giving information, but you made a good point. You're not keeping that information, but basically just the general information in terms of the location. One thing I want to ask you, Nieves, is, when we talk about resiliency, it really needs to be a family matter. And the reason I say that is, you have a disaster, usually you get a heads up, a hurricane's coming, you're getting advice. And then there are other times where events may happen, and all of a sudden, like an earthquake. And we've had minor earthquake here in South Jersey, but they do happen, other disasters of that nature. If you're not with your children, for example, do the children know where to go if they can get home? And as far as elderly parents, how do you make those arrangements, particularly when something hits all of a sudden? So there's the type of conversation, the type of preparedness, particularly important within the Latino community, because maybe those discussions aren't taking place and they need to take place.
Thank you for bringing this up. It's an excellent point. Often the Latino community lives within 3 generations. So we have el abuelo, el abuela, then we have the parents, what we call the sandwich generation, and then we have the kids. The older adults have to be taken care of, because a lot of times they don't have the information as quick because they don't have a smartphone or they're not in front of the computer. Then their motion is just slower. So we have to help them. The level of strength is different too. If they have to carry things, if someone is using a walker, if someone is housebound with, a wheelchair, or he has a cane, also vision, understanding everything. So this is a family event. This is a family preparedness initiative. So that's excellent. If you have to discuss, who's taking care of who and what. And also sometimes we have mothers of three that are by themselves, and she has to carry, maybe specific milk for one of them, clothing. So we have to really not only be prepared for ourselves, but think about those that are vulnerable, and they will not be able to act as quickly, or basically they won't be able to act, period. So we will have to figure out their exit, figure out their plan. Not only our plan, but I will have to figure out the plan for my mother. And that's what we have to discuss as a family, as a community.
And obviously, when we're talking about the Latino community, faith comes into play, maybe the infrastructure as far as what's in the neighborhood, the churches, et cetera, that are usually a support mechanism for the recovery effort. How do you engage those other pillars within the community, if you will?
Well, the Hispanic communities usually have already identified their leaders in the community, such as, las iglesias cristianas, católicas, etc. And those are great places to start looking for resources to plan. The American Red Cross is another place to actually reach out to them. They have wonderful booklets that will list everything. Actually, they even have worksheets that you can actually start writing down the most important phone numbers, what to take. So you don't have to think. Once that comes, you don't have to think. Everything has been thought out and explained. So I will go to those two places first, and most likely, the churches and the community centers and the American Red Cross would have already a plan for you to analyze, see if it fits you, or basically a very basic plan and steps for you to deploy.
And certainly a big need within the Latino community, particularly getting more of those resources available in Spanish, and really having folks that can help them navigate through the various channels to be able to get the assistance that they need. This is particularly important for undocumented individuals that do need that navigation within the community as well. Nieves, I wanted you to refer to the website one more time. If someone wants to get engaged, wants to volunteer, wants to support, where should they reach out?
Is Resilient NJ ACCR, which stands for Atlantic County Coastal Region. Even if you go to your browser to Google and you write Resilient NJ Atlantic County Coastal Region, it would just take you there.
Well, thank you so much. This is very educational, certainly something for all of us to think about, to be better prepared for the next event that might happen, particularly here in the shore communities. Nieves, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Michael. And thank you so much, Latino Motion. And I hope that everything works out for everyone. We'll be talking. Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
thank you so much for joining us at home here on Latino Motion.
Choose to get your feet wet, to learn more about protecting our environment.
Choose to read minds, to understand the human brain.
Choose to get your hands dirty, to create a masterpiece.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, offering primary, specialty, and urgent care, plus surgery and more. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. and South Jersey Gas.